Investor Intelligence provides general information only. You should consider seeking independent advice to see how this information relates to your unique circumstances. Please refer to the terms and conditions available at investorintelligence.com.au for more.
Welcome to this week's episode of Investor Intelligence, your weekly podcast on all things investment, hosted by me, Jacob Kearns. Have you ever heard the saying, your network is your net worth? Well, there's definitely truth to that. Whether you're a business owner or working your way through your profession, there are several ways you can use networking to accelerate your career. With me today, I have two exceptionally talented professionals who have utilized their networking skills in a variety of interesting ways to accelerate their business. My first guest is someone who's been on the podcast before. He's an expert in the property investment space and an absolute pleasure to talk to. Welcome back, Mr. Stephen Quan.
Well, thanks for having me again, Jacob. Always great to be on the podcast with you.
My second guest today has not been on the podcast before, but her company Dovetail is doing some incredible work helping small to medium-sized businesses make an impact on the world by strategically partnering them with the right charity. Welcome to the podcast, Kirrily Graham.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here.
So I want to break this episode up into two sections. First, I want to talk about how networking fits into your overall business strategy, and then I'd like to get into your strategic approach when it actually comes to attending these networking events and building relationships. So first, I'll throw it to you, Kirrily. As a business owner, out of everything you could be spending your time on to further your business, what makes you choose networking?
Well, I think that there is never a silver bullet answer to, how you grow your business. So it's always having a balance of a few different strategies, and networking is a really, good one to include in that. That, is just good business sense. But also for me personally, I really love being with people, so it's something I enjoy. I get a lot of energy out of being around other people. And I think that's just something that sort of really helps me in just working in my business day to day to have something that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think that also as business owners, we can very much get stuck in working in our business and, networking and having some structure and regular commitments around networking is a really good way to keep the focus on working on your business.
Yeah.
From a strategic point of view as well. So I think it's a bit of a balance of having a few different strategies, but for me, that's something I really enjoy.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective, balancing those different strategies and including networking in there as one of them. How do you find networking helps you work on the business rather than in it?
There's probably a couple of different ways. A lot of networking events really they're not just about turning up and talking to people. There's usually some sort of education or point of interest that you're talking about that is business related. So I think it's of benefit because you're always learning as well. You hear from different speakers and, there might be different areas of expertise that they have. So that's a really good way just to be learning, more about how you can be more effective in your business. And also too, just what you learn from others, because I think particularly now we're a lot more comfortable with having our niche areas of expertise, or I like to call them our superpowers. It's like, what's your superpower? So, if you can connect with those people and you've got a genuine interest in that area, or it's an area that you don't do so well, then, you can learn quite a lot just from those conversations, or perhaps connecting with them afterwards to follow them, get their newsletters, listen to their podcasts. So, there's definitely other benefits from just about what you can get out of them as a potential client.
Yeah.
I think adding on that, so just jump into the conversation there, but adding on that, for what Kirrily just mentioned about a networking opportunity or learning opportunities, I'm finding that when you're going to different networking, you're meeting different businesses, and by you learning about how they talk to their clients, how they explain their businesses, is actually providing you another perspective for your own business need. And one of the things that I found very interesting about networking as well is that the power of connecting with other businesses that you never think, if you're sitting in an office, you never think that you have an opportunity to connect with those people. But by conversation with them, you're finding that, wow, they have a common interest or way that we can collaborate with each other to create a very specific and tailored need that our clients will find that, wow, I never heard about this. How can you guys come up with this idea? But that's actually starting from networking and knowing people.
To go into that a little bit deeper, Stephen, essentially you're saying you're using networking in a way that's not just growing your client base, but you're thinking about how can I better serve the existing clients that I have by using my network to help them find services that they might not have found otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about when you're in businesses, and one of the things that to continue growing and continue evolving your businesses is about adding more value to your clients. So any good businesses or any great businesses would agree that we're constantly asking, how can we better serve our client base? Look after your existing clients are much valuable than trying to spend hundreds of $1,000s try to attracting new clients. Thinking about this, if you look after your existing client base by providing more additional services that helping them continually growing their own personal journey or professional journey, they will keep thinking about you. It's also being like in the front of their mind as well. Going back to the basic of networking strategy, why we're using networking is also part of that, to be building our personal brand in the market, knowing more professionals.
Yeah, and I think that this has really shown up for me because my current business, Dovetail, is very new. It's, it's sort of just going into its third year, and I just find that having the right sort of other professional services that I can collaborate with, I've found, because I work a lot with the charity sector, and they quite often don't have internal resources, particularly around marketing. So we've been able to bring in photographers, videographers, copywriters, and all these people. They're not people that I have in my business at this stage. So I can connect with my community and my network to actually bring those people in. And that's just really valuable, you know. And so your value to your clients is really high as well. It's not just that transactional part. It's actually, you really start to develop, I suppose, a partnership, and that really deepens the relationship so that you become a valuable part of their business.
Yeah. One of the things that I think, like last week I'm meeting you, we also have a really good concept, and I really like that, and how you wording that in the way that when we go networking, right, we want to become a master connector. What that means is that anything that our client need in whatever aspect, personal, professional, if they want to improve their mindset, if they want to improve their physicals, or if they want to have career progression, or if they want to grow their businesses with the right services to help them, they instantly think about us. And that's also another way for us to keep in touch with our client base, so they can constantly understand that we're there to look after their future benefit and future interests as well.
Yeah. Okay. And so, Kirrily, tell me about your strategic approach when you're thinking about where to allocate your time between these networking events and what factors you consider.
So I definitely am very strategic around how I network. So I don't think that it's a great approach to be just going to a whole bunch of events. So I tend to very carefully choose no more than 3 that I would focus on for the year. I would at least have 2 that I am going to really spend the time going on a regular basis, taking time to meet and follow up with people, do the one-to-ones, actually catching up for a coffee or lunch or whatever, to really sort of deepen those relationships so that you're really kind of embedded in them. I think that you do see quite often, and people do think about networking around, I've got to go to events, I've got to get business cards, and I've got to meet as many people as possible, but it's not necessarily like that. So when I go to an event, I also have an intention that I'm going to come away with at least 2 or 3 people that I'm going to catch up with afterwards, and so making sure that I get around the room and meet enough people and have enough of a conversation so that I can actually go, yes, this is somebody, should we, let's catch up for lunch, or let's catch up for a coffee, and I think we can, work together on something, or there's a lot of synergy between what we do, and, and really spend that time to do that extra follow-up. And I think that's another thing that quite often people miss, is allocating the time to do the follow-up. So that's, I think, a really
That's
important
very
part.
critical. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think I really agree with you in the way that you're approaching networking as well, because networking is part of the strategy or day-to-day activity that we do. Other than that, we also have spend time to look after our clients and connecting with more people, and have a same approach like you. When I for the whole year, when I'm sitting down and I'm selecting the networking groups or the networking event to go to, I tend to also strategically asking my question is, if I go into this, what value would I be able to give to this group? And also what their value exchange back to the businesses that I'm looking for. And usually before I go into any networking groups or any networking events, I also usually research about the people.
Yes,
The people actually in there, because again, like you, I mean, like, I don't want to go in there and try to talk to like hundreds of people and collecting the business card. And by the end of the event, I feel great. Maybe I collect a lot of business card, but when I look at the business card, I forgot what the conversation I have with those people.
Yes.
And then over years, I'm learning that we go into networking events, when you do research, you identify some case people that in the industry that related to you and have a common interest or common goals. When you go in there, you're connecting with those people, you'll be able to have a deeper conversation, but also may have an instant interest, be able to then have a more productive follow-up after that. So for me, I refer to connect with people in a deeper level. I rather than connect with 5 or 10 good people that really know what we do and I be able to also helping them to grow their businesses as well. And then we can grow slowly from there rather than, meet 100 people and try to keep up with that. Some people can be able to do that. I really admire how they do that because I can't find my time to, look after 100 people.
Yeah. And I think that's something I definitely do too. If there's an opportunity to do that research before you go to an event to see out who's going to be there, so you can be intentional about who you want to connect with, and make sure that that does happen, and even ask, if the event organisers, can you introduce me? This is somebody I'd really like to connect with.
Okay.
I think that's really, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
We're there. It's networking. That's what we're there for. So, you don't have to be apologetic around that. And I also think that you need to be clear about who are the types of people that you do want to connect with. And this is another thing that, after many, many years, you kind of do get the sense of who are people that you're not going to just connect with as a one-on-one, but are possibly working with your clients, the same sort of clients as you are, who will become referral partners. So it's the one-to-many. And so that there is that benefit, whether it's because you can both offer very similar or complementary services, because they have a need that you can perhaps fulfill for their clients, which could be of benefit. So, being very clear for yourself about what that is, so that when you go to those meetings, you can actually, all those events, you can actually be looking out, for those types of people as well. It's all about building relationships and connecting with people. And so, how could I possibly help this person? How could I possibly help connect them with who they need to, to be connected with?
Yeah.
And that's a really, when you come from that place, then I think that's a really solid foundation for building a good relationship.
Yeah, and it is all about relationship building, isn't it? And that's an interesting perspective, what you just said. Do you find that people attend these networking events with a focus on themselves and how can they find clients for themselves? How do you move on from that selfish kind of attitude?
Yeah, that's really interesting because I just recently had been at one of our regular events that Stephen and I go to, our regular networking event, and there was a lady that came along to that meeting, and we connected on LinkedIn afterwards and stuff, which is great. That's absolutely fine to do that. But next minute, I'm getting this salesy message that wasn't really personalised, and it was inviting me to attend and book in a time to find out more about her.
Right.
And then I got an email as well, and it just kind of really left that icky feeling for me. I was just like, yeah, you're not my person. You're not my kind of person.
Yeah.
Whereas just coming from that place about just building the relationship and seeing how you can work together, I think people are getting a lot smarter about that now, and I think people do sort of realise that that's a better approach. There are a lot of people that don't necessarily do it that way. And it may be perhaps that I tend to go to events and work in certain networks that do it well as well. I think you get a little savvy as you get a bit older and a little bit more seasoned to where you go. So, I think that's probably the case.
On that note, I do agree with you. And one of the things, because I never been into the situation where I get into the event that I be selfish maybe because I did a lot of research and also talking to different people before I actually attend my first networking event. Every intention I'm going there is I'm asking, yes, I do a lot of research, knowing who actually in the room to make sure that at least they're relevant. When I say relevant is, do they have a relevance in terms of industry or the services that they can providing to the client that I'm working with? Because my first intention in going there is purely thinking about how can I help my clients by reaching out to more professionals that can deliver other services that we not be able to deliver, right? To have that holistic approach, our client journey. And because of that, for starting from that point and going to the event, I know who I want to connect first. But really the question is having a question about what can I help you? Like, how can I bring the value to you? What challenge, what problem are you facing? Because what I'm finding is that building that connection, we're still human, you know? The fact that no one wants to come and say, hey, can you sell this to me? Or I want to sell this or blah, blah, blah. And the approach maybe expire, I guess, you know. Now it's more about connection, relationship building, about that. If you're able to giving to that people, giving a lot of value to other businesses, and you do a great job, that's reflect into the client that you refer them to. Because they look at they do a good job, they look after your clients, and the client happy about you, about your service, about your connection. That also magnified your client base down the track as well. And eventually, again, you know, we're here for businesses. As much as you can give, to some extent, the people that you helping them to grow their businesses, they will also want to get back to you. And that's where I'm seeing relationship building is more a long-term approach, rather than you think that you might be attending one event or two events and you can max like, you know, a lot of businesses. I think that's just a very short term.
It's very hard to build trust when effectively, you know, when it's that transactional, I think. And so when you can actually build a relationship and demonstrate that you care, you start to build that trust. And ultimately people will only buy off you or recommend you if they trust you. And so that can only happen over time.
And something that's worth pointing out too is you guys are talking about looking for other people that will better serve your clients, but the other people at these events are probably doing the same. So if you're working to build these relationships, then if you're playing the long game, in time, hopefully some of these people will start referring clients to you as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay. Well, moving on to when you're actually attending these events, a lot of people don't know what to do when they enter a room full of people. So, Stephen, tell me your approach when you first enter a room.
Yeah, so when I walk into the room, what I will do is I will stop for a quick second or two because I want to observe the room. I want to see who actually there. I'm not who actually there, but observe the room and find my niche. And what I mean by find my niche is looking to connect with people that they have an open body language, or they're in an open group that they welcome newcomers to come in and have a chat with them. So that's sort of like helping me to be a little bit more comfortable to getting to know the stranger, especially when you're brand new to a networking event. It's like speaking to strangers, sometimes a bit nerve-wracking. But if you've done all the research, you know who you're talking to. And when you go in there, you observe the room first, and then you identify who actually open up the conversation. The body language is very critical, because if you have like a group that's, like, let's say 2 people, and they're in a closed position where they're in depth conversation, if you try to come in and interrupt them, perhaps they might say hi to you, but they're going back to the conversation and you wasn't sure how you can interrupt that conversation anymore. And you feel maybe a bit rude to get in, and you're standing there and wasting your time.
Bit of an awkward situation.
Correct, yeah. But then if you look at people that they also may in a small group and they're more open up, so you can see there's the sport and the way they stand, that inviting new people coming in, and you can come in and say hi, and these people will tend to welcome you to the group, and they will start asking some question a little bit about you, and you can be able to ask a bit question about them as well. And other thing that it's a little bit just before I get into the event as well, was I'm looking at maybe a short pitch, not the pitch, but really a short way to introduce myself that give them enough interest to continue the conversation.
Okay, let's go into that. What do you say?
Okay, so how about you ask me a question? I come in the group today. Hello, I'm Stephen.
Hey, Stephen, my name's Jacob.
Oh, Jacob. Nice to meet you, Jacob.
You too.
What made you come into the event today?
Just having a look around, doing some networking.
Wonderful. And what do you do?
I run a podcast, actually.
Wonderful. Okay. And what podcast are you running?
It's called Investor Intelligence. We interview a bunch of professionals about how... Hang on, let me say.
Yeah. That's perfect. It's a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
That really is. It's perfect because having something actually prepared,
Yeah.
you know, you can really it's almost practice. It's literally your elevator pitch.
Yeah.
That if you have it prepared, it just rolls off your tongue.
Yeah.
You know.
So how about we doing this? We take another role. So you come across and then you ask me the question, what do I do?
Okay, Stephen, what do you do?
Well, Jacob, I mentor investors to be well through property.
Mm-hmm. And what does that involve?
Well, that means that I will help them to go through education and help them to build a portfolio at the same time that they can leveraging on property and achieve their financial goals or their personal goals.
Mm.
You know, and you can see when I give you initial answer, you was like, what do you mean by mentor investor? What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
So it's saying enough to get some interest, but they kind of also want to know more. So you're not just going off for about 5 minutes where you see people's eyes glaze over and go, okay, I'm just going to go top up my drink.
Yeah. Well, actually, that leads perfectly into my next question, which is, how do you extract yourself from a conversation that you don't think will serve yourself or the other person or your clients? How do you politely get out of that?
Would you like me to take that one on? Yeah. Okay. So I think, it's always important to be polite about it, you know, and I think that generally you will find that it's a mutual thing, you know, on the odd occasion it may not be. So I always sort of apologise and maybe say, I don't want to hog all of your time. Is there anybody in particular I can connect you with that you'd love to connect with tonight? And actually, make myself useful in that sense to perhaps connect them with somebody that would be.
Yeah.
Or even just saying, look, I'd love to get to connect with a few other people, you know. So I'm going to make sure I do my rounds tonight, you know, and just make sure that it's clear that you are actually wanting to move around and meet a few people. I think there's lots of different creative ways you can do it. I know,
and interesting when you mentioned that, and it's actually one of my questions that I usually use to politely to get out of the conversation as well was, you know, great to have a chat and understand what you do. Who I would like to connect today? So I can introduce you. Yeah. And then that's allowed me to sort of also for them to also realize that it's like they're not there to just continue talking about their businesses and all of that. But then sort of like when you're asking that question, you lend them a hand and say, you know what, let me welcome you to the group. Let me welcome you to the event. Who you particularly looking for? Let me connect with that person and then maybe have a more productive conversation from there. And eventually by finding that people actually remember you as a person, even though you don't have anything in common yet, but they remember that, I met Kirrily, I met Stephen, and actually introduced me to this person. And then when they continue that conversation, when they maybe the client asking, how did you know this person? And they would say, because Stephen or Kirrily been introduced me to that group.
Yeah. And I think even another thing that works really well too is getting there early. I know it's not something people can always do, but when you get to events early, you get a really good opportunity to meet people as they're coming in, and you can then have that kind of those sort of people there, and you know a little bit about them, so that you know if you do come into that situation, you can actually then make those connections for others as well. Yeah, I think that's really good because it's always you feel a lot more comfortable being there earlier and being settled rather than sort of coming in and it's busy and everyone's talking and you're going, ooh, you know, is there a group I can kind of get into a conversation with? So I think that it's just those little things that you can do to make the experience, I think, a lot easier.
And I think there are also another strategy as well. I think it's also going back to the body language as well. When you stand in a group, unless you're in a very deep conversation, normally I try to avoid that sort of conversation in networking events. It's more like after the follow-up and catch up and the coffee catch up and all of that, the way we can spend more time to do one-on-one with each other. But in that event, I always stand in the open body language, even in the group, just so we can also welcome new people coming in, and that's also an opportunity for you to somehow interrupt the conversation that you wouldn't want to continue. Maybe another, creative strategy to be polite.
Yeah, and so what you're meaning is like not facing each other directly, but sort of
like a little
close. Sort of, but you're open so that another third person could easily see that they could just walk into that.
I mean, like with the podcast, it's maybe a little bit hard to visualize that, but it basically when you're in the depth conversation, two party or two people will be facing each other directly, and their feet or their legs is usually pointing each other. Does it kind of like indicate to you that in their conversation, in close conversation?
Yeah.
But if you look at their legs and they open the angle slightly in the opposite direction or just slightly different direction, then they also have that open body language. Would you agree with that?
Yes,
Kirrily?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we've discussed that, you want to balance connecting with as many people as you can versus connecting more deeply with a handful. Do you have any tips on, in the follow-up, how to actually provide value in that follow-up to keep top of mind and build that relationship?
I definitely one of the principles that comes out of the BNI network is the 24/7 principle.
Okay.
Which means that you connect with them within 24 hours after meeting them. So whether that's you drop them an email, you ask to connect on LinkedIn, something like that.
Yeah.
Then within 7 days, you'll have another touch point. So it might be, hey, I saw this article today and thought that this would be of interest to you, or there's this other event that's coming up. I thought this might be your kind of people, so there's something else to do that follow up. And then make sure the one is that you actually have a one-to-one catch-up within 1 month.
Okay.
So that it's not so far away that, you don't have to catch up with everybody tomorrow, but within the next month, make sure that you've caught up for a coffee or a lunch so that you can have that deeper conversation. So, yeah, I find that works really well. And it's kind of a really nice formula that you can just schedule it in and just say, right, I'm going to call these people on this day and make, you can just sort of put that structure in place.
Yeah.
That's very great. Yeah, that structure there. Also on building on that as well. The balance that we're fighting, as mentioned earlier from the conversation today, is only coming from what you actually do even before you come into the meeting or you're coming to the event, because you're already researching and you know who you want to have a discussion first. If you're going there and your intention is to connect with those people first, one of the things is we need to be active listening, right? We need to when we're asking the question, we need to listen to what they actually say rather than you have all 100 questions in your mind, you prepare and you just keep asking, and you're not there to interrogate them. You're there to have a conversation. So active listening will help you to remember some of the interesting point, about their personal interests, about some of the challenges they're facing in the business at the moment. And that is sort of where, depends on how you close up the conversation as well. And that's a reminder of how you reconnect them with a coffee chat or a follow-up meeting as well. But usually what I do is, so let's say, I have a chat with particular one of accountant that I met a couple of weeks ago, and we just come in and he asks, and then we have different conversation, and I start asking a lot of questions that getting to more like the common interest that we talk of soccer.
Okay.
And then we spend a couple of minutes and talk about soccer, but then I'm not there to just only have a chat about that, but politely get out the conversation, and when we follow up in the message, I follow up with him and say, great to chat with you the other day, and we talk about the soccer, but we would love to have a one-on-one to have a deeper conversation to see how I can help you, because one of the challenges that you mentioned to me was that you have a client that looking at perhaps investing in property and don't know how to do so, and you don't know who to refer to. Let's have a chat about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that those sort of personal stories or those personal connections can really be the thing that works. Like I've got a particular lady, I've actually started working with her, but we connected and we got onto cat videos. So, it's like we send each other the funny cat memes or something, and it just makes the relationship, I think, it's fun. It's kind of it's not all serious. We can have some good stuff happen.
Oh, I mean, between me and Kirrily, when we have a conversation and we're finding out, well, originally from Vietnam, and I found out that Kirrily also spent some of her career journey in Vietnam as well.
Yeah,
okay.
I've been over there like 8 times. So
yeah.
So that's now sort of a different conversation that we have. It's not all about work. It's about our love of travel in the country and where we've been and all of that as well.
Yeah,
which is great.
And it's really a skill that you build up over time. As you said, you're playing the long game. You're probably not going to be good at networking when you first start.
100%. I think everything the first time always hard.
Yeah.
I remember my first networking event. I literally am sweating myself for some reason. I'm so nervous. I walk into the room and I literally find a corner to sit there to try to avoid all the eye contact. And even though I did a little bit of research and I think like, have a self talk and talking to myself, I want to go there and open up and smile and be friendly and connect with people. But that nerve is got into me, and I've been sweating and stood at a corner. But I really quickly got out of stage just because simply there's someone else that may be more experienced networker saw me stood in the corner, a bit shy and not able to approach the room, and that person just come across and have a chat with me, and just instantly for only a minute or so conversation, to give me more confidence. And that person also helped me to connect with other people that he asking me where who actually I'm looking to connect with. And that's why one of the reasons why I'm using that question now for me to also politely get out of conversation as well. But that experience there also allowed me to be more confident with my approach. And the more I go, the more I feel comfortable. And now I feel like I walk into the room and I just connect with people naturally.
Yeah. And I think that some people do it more naturally because they are extroverted and that's the way that they are. We both know quite a few people that do that quite well, but I think also too it comes from that space of actually just really being interested in others. And so just being curious, so when you go in, just being, I'd love to learn more about this person and find out what they're into. So I think that when you have curiosity, I think it makes it a lot easier because you start to have all these really, interesting and random conversations where you can find those commonalities and those reasons to connect and reconnect. And
I think just be yourself. Just be yourself, who you are. People appreciate authenticity. I can't say it, but people appreciate that you be true to yourself. Be yourself and going there with the mindset of how you can want to help other people, what value you can give, and smile. Smile is your best tool to engage with other people in exchanging. If you're in the networking event and then scanning the room as well, and if you hold the eye contact, if you have a nice smile, they usually come across to you and they approach you and they start a conversation.
Yeah, definitely more approachable.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I've taken away from this conversation is that successful networking is from not just when you're at the event, but it starts before you attend the event, and it's also, a lot of it comes from after, right? In the follow-up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been really interesting, and I think networking is, a really great tool for not just business owners, but professionals in their career to meet the right people, to further their skills, and just have fun.
Yeah, just have fun and getting to know more people.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to wrap up, Kirrily, I've asked Stephen these questions on a previous podcast, so I won't ask him this time, but do you have a favourite book?
Probably one of my more favourite reads more recently was one For Love and Money, which is by a lovely lady, Carolyn Butler-Madden. She's based up in Sydney and loved her first book, read her second one recently, actually stalked her for a little while, went to some of her webinars and have met, and we've actually collaborated on a few things since. But what I love about that book is that it is, I think, very timely because it's about how business is really an opportunity to, bring that human side and that focus back on community and giving back, and that every business has that opportunity to do that. And when you do that and you do it well, it has an incredible impact on your business in so many ways, in the way that, the community or your clients actually view your business, your brand, how your staff engage with it as well. And so I think the more that people actually look at bringing that element into their business, the better it is for their business, but it's also a better thing for the world.
Yeah, and that ties in really well with your business too, right? To finish off, Kirrily, what are you excited about for the future?
Probably the opportunity that what I do in my business. I think that this is it's a growing industry. I think there is a lot of opportunity, particularly for the SME sector, to do this and do it better. And I do think that this is an area that the business sector can make a far greater impact, moving forward, because, we as the sort of the people, I think are actually getting how powerful, a voice we can have.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's really exciting to sort of see how that is evolving, and it's moving very fast now.
No, that is exciting. Thank you, Kirrily, and thank you, Stephen.
Thank you for having me here on the podcast.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's been really great to catch up with you both about it today.
Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome.
If you found this episode or any of our episodes helpful, please make sure to share and leave a rating to help us reach more people on their investing journeys. And of course, subscribe to be notified when new episodes drop. Make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at Investor Intelligence Podcast. You can find links to our other socials in the show notes, including a link to the Property Mentors weekly blog. If you're ready to get your property portfolio in shape for financial freedom, check out Luke's latest book, Property Fit. You can get yourself a copy at www.propertyfitbook.com.au.